What is going on YouTube? It's your boy Spanko, and today I'm excited because I'm finally back with something that I've been cooking up for a while now, and that is none other than one of the main, I guess, antagonists in a GX Season 2, I think it was, and that is Arcana Force. In the brand new set Supreme Darkness, which by the way, we're at Sneak Peek today. Literally, Sneak is about to start right now. It hasn't even started yet, but I wanted to bring you guys this deck profile because I think this deck is really cool. It has some different win conditions now. It can still turn skip, do a lot of really cool things. I think it's an anime deck that needed support. Finally got some really good support, and this deck is actually playable now, which is really cool. So with that said, I want to show you guys the deck profile and kind of get into the new cards a little bit. So first things first is 3 of the brand new Arcana Force 5, the Hierophant. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. This card's one of the best cards in the deck. It's the best normal summon of the deck easily. So its first effect is basically a pseudo miscellaneousaurus. You can discard it, and your opponent cannot activate cards to the effects of Arcana Force monsters when they're summoned. If you guys don't know, Arcana Force monsters, all their effects happen on summon. So Veiler, Imperm, you are not worried about that when it comes to activating the effect on summon. You are worried about hand traps and other scenarios, and I'll talk about that in a little bit, but for the Arcana Force cards, at least it'll protect those. And then, of course, it has a Heads and Tails effect. Heads, you special summon a level 4 Arcana Force monster from your deck to your side of the field, so it's essentially just like you summon it, you summon another monster. Or Tails, you special summon an Arcana Force monster from your deck to your opponent's side of the field. Now, that's not actually that bad because it's going to trigger the effect on your opponent's side of the field, which means now like your talents and stuff is live. But also, the brand new Fusion monster, which is your boss monster, can fusion from your opponent's side of the field. So as long as there's Arcana Force monsters anywhere, you can still get this guy out, which is important. So this card is really good in that sense. Then we're playing 3 of the Sun. The Sun is actually really good as well. So this card, if you control a coin flip effect, so if there's a coin flip effect card anywhere on the field, so that whether it's a monster, spell, whatever it is, you can special summon him, which is really, really good. He just becomes an extender. He's also 2900 attack, so he does help you push. He also, of course, has a Heads and Tails effect. So your Heads effect is you set a spell card from your deck that has a coin tossing effect. And the Tails effect is kind of like a Heavy Storm, which can kind of be useful sometimes. But the Heads effect, especially when you're going first, is what you're going to want to be using it for because it's going to be able to set your consistency cards, right? Speaking of consistency cards, we're playing 3 of the brand new Light Force. So Light Force is another card that has an effect on the standby phase. You have to flip a coin to make sure it stays live. And if it lands on Tails, then it negates the effects of the thing. But that only happens if you don't have a Light Barrier in your field zone. So most of the time you're safe here. But what's really important with this card is that you can discard a card and add 2 Arcana Force monsters with different names from your deck to your hand. So it's a consistency piece for you, which is really, really good. And it sets up your graveyard, which can be relevant. And I'll talk about why that's relevant in a little bit as well. And then lastly, the last new card is 3 of the Arcana Spread. This card is really good. Essentially, you can toss a coin. And again, by the way, with all of these coin tossing effects, I do want to mention, if you guys don't know, there is a card called Light Barrier, which is like one of the OG cards for Arcana Force. If that card's on the field, you can pick the Heads or Tails. So although you're thinking it is an RNG kind of deck where you just flip a coin all the time, but if you have the Light Barrier, which is your field spell, which there's a lot of ways to get to the field spell, but if you have that card, you essentially get to pick the effect anyway, so the Heads or Tails shouldn't really matter too much. So with that said though, Arcana Spread has a Heads effect where you special summon a level 4 or lower Arcana monster from your deck, and the Tails effect is you special summon a monster that has a coin tossing effect from your graveyard. Now this is why setting up your graveyard with something like Light Force can be really good, because the effect to summon from deck has to be level 4 or lower. However, the effect to summon from graveyard doesn't have that restriction. So if you draw the World, and this is kind of like a brick for you, but this is kind of like one of the best cards in the deck, right? If you draw this, you can actually pitch it with your Light Force, get it set up in the graveyard, pick the Tails effect, and summon it to your side of the field. So it kind of cheats this out, which is really nice, right? So that's why setting up the graveyard could be relevant as well, right? So that's it for all the new cards from SUDA. There is technically one more new card that came out in I think it was Maze, and that no one really talked about, which is 3 of the Fiend. So the Fiend is really good because it's essentially a terraforming. You discard this card and then you add a Light Barrier from your graveyard, your deck or graveyard to your hand. So it just keeps recurring Light Barrier, which is really, really good. It has a flip effect as well. The Heads one is not as important. The Tails one is kind of cool. So pretty much if an attack is used using this card, so whether you attack or your opponent attacks you, it kind of just dark holes the whole board. So essentially destroy all monsters on the field. Heads and Tails doesn't matter. You're using this to get to your Light Barrier. So that's it for the newer cards. Of course, these are all from SUDA. I hope I explained them well. They're really important because they all synergize really well with each other. I want to talk about the old cards a little bit as well. So of course, the first old card that I want to talk about is You already know we got that ulti first, baby. Come on, let's go. This card is so nice, though. So essentially, it's just a turn skip. When this card is summoned, you toss a coin. Heads, during your end phase, you can send 2 monsters you control to the graveyard, and then your opponent skips their next turn. So it's a turn skip card, which is absolutely insane. It's very easy to set up in this deck as well. So you always turn skip with this, which is really good. When it comes back to you, and you want to now go for game, the best card to summon is your Arcana Force EX Dark Ruler. It's 4k attack. Very easy to summon this card in this deck as well, and this is going to help you OTK and kill kill your opponent, right? So essentially, this card turn skips, and then once it comes back to you, you're summoning this, and you're going to be going for game with these cards over here. And then we're playing some names. So we're playing Arcana Force for the Emperor, we're playing the Empress, and then we're playing the Lovers. So these cards, their effects are not super relevant. The Empress is actually not bad. If you end up hitting, let's say you don't have Light Barrier, and you go Hierophant, which is going to get the tails effect. Let's say you summon on your opponent's side of the field. This card is actually not bad to put on your opponent's side of the field because it tosses a coin. The tails effect is each time your opponent normal summons or sets a monster, you have to discard a card. So why is that good? If I give this to my opponent and I then go, like, let's say normal summon this or special summon something, they have to discard a card. So it kind of hand loops my opponent, which is really nice. So this is the one you always want to give your opponent. But really, you're just putting these names. You want the extra names so that you can get your card effects off. And the Light Force requires you to add 2 cards with different names. So if you already have like a Hierophant or the Sun, you really want to have different names in your deck to add. So that's why we're playing all these different names. Again, they're kind of bricks, but they're the ones you want to summon from your deck. And then lastly, actually, let's talk about some of the older spell cards as well. 3 Light Barrier. This is like the best card in the deck, the main key card in the deck. Once per turn during your standby phase, you toss a coin. If the result is tails, you essentially negate the effects of the card, which is fine though, even though that kind of sucks. You have cards like the Fiend, which is going to get you to another one anyways. And then on top of that, the real effect of this is kind of just getting to be able to pick heads or tails. And then lastly, this card right here, Arcana Reading. I have a love-hate with this card. So essentially, the heads effect, sometimes you have to use this without Light Barrier on board because it kind of gets you started. The heads effect is you can add a card from your deck to your hand that has a coin tossing effect. The tails effect is your opponent can add any card from their deck to their hand. So you can imagine if you get tails and your opponent gets their 1-card combo starter or their board breaker or the tails of it. Listen, the card can be great, but it can also be the worst card in your deck. But you have to play it because it is a consistency beast for you. And again, if you have Light Barrier already on your field, that shouldn't matter anyways. But it's just something that unfortunately in testing, it came up once. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, and that was bad. And then for the rest of the deck, right? So that's the Arcana Force stuff. I try to keep it as simple as possible because we really don't. We want to max out on this, but we also want to be have room for non-engine to be competitive. This deck always wants to go first, right? So we're playing 1 Called By and 3 Crossout. Now you guys might be wondering, why are you playing Crossout? You just said that you have a card that's a pseudo miss. True. However, that pseudo miss is also unfortunately the best normal summon of your deck. So unless you're opening 2 of it, you're going to be using the normal summon effect more than you're going to be using Misc effect. And then on top of that, cards like some of your other cards that can get hand trapped, or they get hand traps on your opponent's turn, or whatever it is, you want to be able to protect them from that as well. So that's why Crossout Designator I think is very important for this deck. The Misc effect, although it's insane, there's not a lot of times where it's actually going to come up. 1 Prosperity, of course, for consistency. And then we're playing Crossout, and I wanted to play a lot of non-engine, so we're playing 2 Ash, 2 Imperm. We're playing the Bystials. Actually, these are important because they're actually really good right now in the format, but also because they're all lights here, they're actually very susceptible to the Bystial stuff. So for that reason, I actually play these for Crossout targets, but they're just generally good right now as well. Veiler, Nib. You lose to Nib in this deck pretty hard, so Nib is actually pretty important to Crossout. 2 Talents. This, if you draw this, you can actually activate it yourself if you get a monster on your opponent's side of the field. So it's actually really good in that sense. But the other thing with this card is it's also a Crossout target, so you don't want to lose the Talents in that sense. And then lastly, we're playing 1 Azaroon. Azaroon's a card that I found that like sometimes these end boards, you have extra monsters on your end board and you kind of have nothing to do with them. Instead of just leaving them on the board, let's make a link 2 and get this and kind of have some kind of disruption, right? So that's it for the main deck. It's 40 cards on the dot. I'm actually very comfortable with this main deck. I think this main deck is very good. But I want to move on to the extra deck to show you what this deck can do. Okay, guys, Sneak hasn't even started yet, so I was only able to get my hands on 1 of these. Play 3. You do not play 1. I promise you guys, it shouldn't be hard to get. It's super rare, but I don't have it. But anyways, so you play 3 of this card. If you guys don't know what the big boss monster is, essentially he's a skill drain now for the deck, which is crazy because if you don't get the turn skip off, this is your separate win condition now. So you have 2 win conditions now for the deck. And then on top of this, this card must be special summoned by sending the above cards from the field to the graveyard. And it's what's important with that is it's the field. So if you summon an Arcana Force monster to your opponent's side of the field, you can use that monster to summon this card. So it's really good. 3300 attack is also insane. Helps you OTK and push for damage as well. Then we're playing 1 IP, 1 SP, 1 Silhat Rabbit, 1 Lina. They're all lights, like I said, so Lina's good. 1 Axis Code Talker. Again, just a lot of utility. 1 Underworld Goddess, Exoton Knight. We got number 41, 1 Dweller, 1 Starring Knight. This card's kind of funny. This card's also a light fairy, funny enough. 2 level 4 monsters. You can detach 1 monster from this card, and then you can special summon a light monster from your hand. Why that's important is because you can kind of special summon the world sometimes with this. That's not the world. That's not the world. That's not the world. Where's the world? Where's the world? Where's the world? There it is. Zawardo! But But you can summon this off of this sometimes, and it kind of helps you unclog your hand. So that's really good as well. So Starry Night doesn't come up often, but when it does, it's good. One Cowboy, and then one Zeus, just because you're playing all the extra deck stuff. Again, extra deck, it's all utility. It's really not that important. The most important thing in the extra deck is your Arcana Force Fusion monster. This card is insane, right? If you're not able to turn skip, sometimes you're able to turn skip and set this up, which is crazy. But if you're not, it's one or the other, and this card is really, really good as a secondary win condition, right? And then lastly, the side deck. Now, I'm going to say this, and I say this in all my videos, but side decks are always going to be up to personal preference. Keep in mind that I built this side deck kind of to combat the meta, but also to synergize with this deck. This deck sucks going second. Yes, you're playing a ton of hand traps for the crossout stuff, but it doesn't do a lot going second. So you're going to notice the entire side deck is going to be just built to go second, right? So we are playing 3 Lancia here for the Malice matchups and whatnot. Lancia is really, really good. 3 Fenrir. This helps you go second. This actually helps you go first as well. Like, if you're in a matchup where Fenrir is really good, you can just side this in. There's no actual restriction in this deck. There's one card that restricts you, the Light Force. After you add 2 cards for the rest of the turn, you're locked. But you're starting with this anyway, so that's never going to be an issue. So the Fenrir is really good in that sense. We're playing 3 of the Fualos. Now, I understand Fualos is kind of expensive, so if you guys don't have these, Stampede is reprinting them soon anyway, but these cards are really good because it's going to help you to get to all these secondary cards to help you break boards. And then we're playing 3 Dark Ruler No More and 3 Evenly Matched. Again, I just don't want to see boards. I can't. This deck cannot play through like negates. This deck cannot play through a bunch of like disruption. So you need to be able to break boards, and that's why we're playing this side deck. But that's really it for the deck profile, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Arcana is a deck that got, I think, new support. That's actually relevant support. It's really, really good. I'm not telling you guys this deck's going to be meta. Of course not. But if you guys ever wanted to play Arcana Force and you guys are big GX guys like I am, this is the time to play it. The deck's really fun. It's very consistent, and it got some really, really cool new cards. So thank you guys all for watching. I appreciate every single one of you. If you guys did enjoy this video, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more content just like this one. I also have a vlog to film for today, so we're gonna get that vlog out and you guys will see that soon. Shout out to cameraman like always for being the best cameraman on YouTube, and with that, Spanko signing out. Peace.
Get up, we want you to get on your feet.